case of an emergency. So this is primarily targeting at people who are not able to have who don't know how to call 911 or looking for a more convenient way of reaching out for facilities in case of an emergency. And I use the following tools: Figma and Figma for collaborative and brainstorming purposes. And the project took approximately 4 weeks to accomplish. And I'll proceed. But the main problem was that people need medical advice, and sometimes it may not be easy to find reliable medical advice. And unless you go to a hospital, might be geographically far, you might not be able to receive such advice here. So the goal of this project was to create a way that users can reach out to medical professionals, in this case, doctors or nurses or whoever is qualified in the platform, and can easily converse with them in a convenient way. So I follow my design process was as follows. I followed the standard, which was first empathizing. And in that case, I used the 5 whys, and I created user persona for that. And I also a defining process where I created user statements, problem statements, and I created user journey and did a competitive analysis. And also ideated on the goal using information architecture and the tools used. I did some prototyping, then I did some testing, and iterated on the prototype based on the feedback that I received. I'll begin with empathizing that word phase, which was, and I began with the 5 whys. So for those who may not be aware, the 5 whys is a design thinking technique in which you explore asking reflective questions, and sometimes you keep down all the way in 5 steps. So illustrated on the slide, I asked myself the first question was why people can't get to medical healthcare locations, why? Then I, based on my reflective thinking, I came to the conclusion that maybe because people can't afford to get to those medical service centers. I asked another follow-up question, why? And I said, people's insurance cover can't cover doctor visits. And I said, okay, why again? And doctors at hospitals could charge large sums of money at the hospital to obtain a profit. And I second another why, which led me to the conclusion that the cost of running a hospital is too high to offer reasonable prices. And I broke it down and said, okay, that's frame of mind. The cost of running a hospital the cost of going to hospital is expensive because hospitals need to make a profit for them to offer consultation services. Why don't we bring the consultation services for people wherever they are in a way that can allow them to access those health professionals in a more affordable way? It's a winning for everybody. It can be as so expensive as having to go to hospital itself. So I also by user persona, first of 2, and the first one I had was Jane, who is a stay-at-home mom, expecting a new child in a few months. She has a very busy schedule, which is her description, and her major frustrations were that expensive medical service in that area and an electric ambulance service, which is sometimes difficult to reach in an emergency. So that was one of the user personas I drafted. The second one was an individual called Samson. Samson is a self-volunteer at a homeless shelter, and he cares for individuals struggling with drug addiction. So he's a very good guy. And one of his frustrations was that he was experiencing medical emergency. And in the location he is in, an inadequate healthcare professional to assist due to overpopulation in the area. So Samson in this case will be looking for a solution that can allow him to easily reach out to a wide variety of professionals on the go, instead of having to rely on the resources available, which may not be sufficient because of the kind of cases he handles the homeless shelter. So my definition phase, I now broke it into 2 problem statements. And we had Samson, who's a healthcare volunteer who needs reliable first aid information because he serves ill or injured persons at a homeless shelter. And the second we had was Jane, who is a low-income single mother who needs free on-call clinical care because she cannot afford to go to a hospital. So I created a user journey roadmap, and I'll just quickly take you through the major points of the one so we can highlight the most important details. So first of all, we had the action will be describing an emergency. So in the case of an emergency, the user would try and describe an emergency in the app. Then they will call it the emergency number and then perform first aid depending on the instructions they receive from the emergency service provider. And then in the eventuality that the ambulance services or whoever is on the route arrives, they deliver the patient to that healthcare volunteer who will then assist them in taking care of the patient for them. I did some competitive analysis to see what's in the market, and just a disclaimer, my feedback on this is just based on my own bias and not directly a critique of the work that was done. So we have Doctor on Demand. On Demand, I think I believe it's still in operation, but primarily, my major critique of that was that the flow for getting to actually call medical service was quite long. The user journey was not as smooth, and you needed to go to a lot of steps to get to that procedure. Same thing with Sasa Doctor. Also, Sasa Doctor had an issue with their development whereby the flow was breaking in the middle of trying to interact with the app. So you find that in most cases you're stuck in trying to get to the doctors, and even after you get there, sometimes you might not even find a doctor who is available to assist. And AV tried to bridge the gap by using artificial machine learning diagnosis. So you read a range of symptoms, and then you're able to diagnose based on the feedback you give to the software. However, the time constraint, imagining the crisis situation where you don't have that time to enter answers to up to like 10 questions, it might be time constraining. So you need that ability to switch from answering survey questions to maybe calling someone who is closest by that can assist with such an event. So I began ideating on different ideas I had, and I used a process called the Crazy Eights. So for a quick description, a Crazy Eights process is where you draft 8 ideas in a span of like 2 to 5 minutes, and I came up with the following ideas, and later on I proceeded to put them into a flow of the information architecture. So this is just a basic illustration of the flow that I created for the application. So I'll just take you through the most important things. You can see health tips, you can find a specialist, and you can also book appointment. This is where you need to actually go. So it doesn't completely remove the user from going to the hospital, but it just brings it closer home to their mobile devices. Then I created a bunch of low fidelity wireframe that I now use for testing. So in the usability test, I was able to find 5 participants from the age of 20 to 30. 3 had no medical insurance, and there were 2 males and 3 females. And I collected feedback in a 10 to 15 minute session. And I then took their feedback and organized it in an affinity map, which you can see on the screen. And I was able to now draw a few themes based on those feedback. So the 4 things I did was that, number 1, users need a bigger access point to find the options. This is based on the first iteration the designs had created. Second of all, users need a more familiar language to refer to medical cases. So in the first iteration of the prototype, I was using, I would say, rather heavy medical terms. So the feedback was that we needed to dial it back a little bit to make it more user-friendly. Then the second thing was to make the message and call button more accessible on a doctor's card. Then lastly, we were include the visibility of the booking appointment button for users. With that, we now create a prototype. So I'm going to see if I can get the prototype. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So, okay. Prototype. There you go. So this is the, hope you can see my screen. I'll assume so.
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is a prototype I was able to design based on the feedback and the research that I had previously showed. So we had I will start with the first action item. So it's a call for help. So by tapping on this, you're able to release a broadcast alert to users in your area. And then you can broadcasting. And in the previous screen, you could have like different descriptions, how like a text message describing what is going on. And then from there, you could send and call out to the health professionals. You'll be on a call straight from that point to kind of the process of trying to find phone numbers of a doctor. So really calling to a health professional at the moment in the case of an emergency. Then going back to this, you can see your appointments. You can also see emergency tips and can learn about emergency services. And also we provided doctors near you. So this feature came from the user research where people wanted that wanted to be able to see doctors around them and reach out to them in case they needed to talk to a specialist. Then the find section, we had find a doctor. In the find a doctor, you have different kinds of doctors, physio, baby. So you can see we even got back from pediatrician to baby, and also things to make it more accessible for those who may not know what the medical term refers to. And from here, you can call a doctor or even chat with a doctor. So you can chat with a doctor here, schedule, or you can book an appointment and confirm on your appointment with a doctor. And in the scheduling part, you can see that you have our calendar here. So you have your appointments per day. So if you have on a date, you can see the appointments that are available to you, and you can either reschedule or cancel an appointment. Then in the messages, you can see your different messages with your doctors who you have connected with, and then you can now respond and send new messages if you want to. So I think that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions and your feedback.
Thank you, David. Thanks for the presentation. I'd like to open it up for questions, and I can see that we have a couple of questions in the chat. If you have questions for David or comments or feedback, the main purpose for this is to provide feedback and allow for the person who is presenting to get to grow, basically. And so if you have feedback, please paste it as well. Post it in the chat. So there's a question here. Vania asks, how did you arrive at the problem statement? What kind of user research, what did your user research look like? And maybe probably adding on top of that, when did you speak to any users before beginning the design phase of the project?
Yes. So I created a pseudo user based on a story that I had seen. First of all, I like to point out that this was not a real project per se. It was more of like a fictional project. So created the whole scenario based on a pseudo user on a story of someone who was not able to, who did not know how to dial 911 at the time. So I was trying to figure out based on this person's story. So for a little bit of context, the person was living in an underdeveloped nation, and the individual was new in a particular location. So he had moved from his locality to the city and did not know about 911 or but he only knew help me on the road. But that the situation was so critical when trying to find the with health facilities, the health professional, they did not know where to turn to, and they lost their loved one. I just build my problem statement around that and jump from there.
Okay. Probably something I would encourage you to do, maybe even for this project as well, is when an app, even when it's fictional, is based on actual like real world scenarios. There are a couple of constraints that you face when you start designing for like real world scenarios. And I'm not saying that this is not real world, but that like talking with users, because at times you may have an idea in your mind, but when you talk with users about what kinds of challenges they're encountering, what constraints they encounter, what like talking about like maybe asking the question, when was the last time you visited a doctor, or have you ever had a medical emergency, and what steps did you take in getting emergency help? Asking those types of questions would help you see how users resolve their problems in the way they resolve it in their current scenario, and then gives you opportunities. So here are things that I can do to improve, even when it's fictional. So the thing about it is that when you do something like that, then it makes those constraints, when you're working on a real project, you'll face a lot of those constraints. You will, at times when you're doing discovery, talk to users and find that, hey, these users have the following. Let's say for instance, these users do not have data, mobile data, for instance, or that the way that maybe the imagination that I had in my mind, that the theory, the assumption that I had at the time is actually not correct, because they may not go to their apps directly to message emergency help. They're probably going to do something else. And so you're going to design with those constraints in mind. And so my encouragement to you, even with this project, is going back to imagining that you hadn't created this with the knowledge that you have. Reach out to people and because it's such a wide thing, you can reach out to most people have sought even if not emergency help, but have sought some kind of health service, and talk to them about how they both either booked an appointment if they needed to, and how they address those issues. And then based on that feedback, create, like, basically start building your assumptions based on feedback like that. At the same time, this is a great project because it basically illustrates a lot of the process you went through. So I'm not diminishing that, but I'm saying it may be useful to provide to have real world scenarios when building an app like this. It makes it more grounded in real world constraints. Were there any, Brian asked, were there any creative solutions or features incorporated into the application to address the issue of trust and credibility, considering the potential skepticism towards telemedicine in some African communities?
Thank you for that question, Brian. Yes, one of the features we, at least, it may not be showcased on the prototype because this is more like a user-facing version, but the eventuality that this is something that we're taking up, we're looking at having only certified professionals being brought onto the platform, or more like there'll be a way of filtering applicants. So only professional and certified individuals can be on the platform and not for medical assistance. And also we thought about adding volunteers who might just be on standby or not certified. So you have like a tag describing who is this. On the prototype, you could see the neurologist, or if there's a volunteer, you could see volunteer. So those kind of certifications to build the credits in terms of you can see who is who and what the level of qualifications might be.
All right. Another question there, maybe a comment there would be maybe creating auto verification for people who are, as part of the onboarding for medical professionals, a way of verifying them, whether like manual or physical, verifying their credentials and onboarding them. A question from Veronica is, how did you make sure to fit, how do you make sure you fit to your user's schedule? And did at any point you face any challenges with this, and how did you go about it? I'm assuming you're talking about, are you talking about the users in the app, Veronica, or the users who David was interviewing? Probably you can, okay, while conducting the research. So what kind of challenges, did you face challenges in scheduling your user interviews, and how did you go about going around or solving those challenges?
Okay, that's a great question. So for the purpose of user interview, because of the demographic that I was trying to target, which was mostly 20 or 30 years, people are more conversant with, who are more comfortable with mobile technologies and those such kinds of interfaces. I targeted a youth event. So the youth event that was happening was more like on a one-on-one basis on the fly, asking questions and having like a normal conversation. So the schedule was not a mobile difficulty because I tried to use the environment to my advantage to get the feedback based on the app. Yeah.
That's actually very smart. So like being able to see the users directly, and I guess the question around that is, how did you choose who you would interview versus who you'd not? Was there any selection criteria, or is it the people who you would find available?
Yeah, it was more on their availability. So working up to people and offering out some of the questions, and luckily happy to answer.
Okay. I guess one thing that has worked for me in the past, depending on which scenario you're in, Veronica, maybe you're asking this because you're facing a challenge around scheduling user interviews. One thing that has worked for me is for personal projects, creating a post on a social media site. I was doing a project a while back, an exploration project, and I posted a message on LinkedIn asking anyone who is an art enthusiast, please reach out to me. I want to speak with you. I'm doing some research, and I got almost 10 like different applicants. And the thing about that is that they will self-filter. And so people who reach out to you are people who fit the criteria that you put. Something else that has worked in work organizations is because we have users, we have their email addresses. I created an email template that I would send out to users every week. So I'd first go to our analytics dashboard and check what types of users fit the criteria of what I'm trying to do. So if I'm designing for a certain part of the app, which users are using that part of the app a lot, because they are likely to provide me with very meaningful feedback. Then I would write them an email telling them that, hey, I noticed that you're really using this app really. You're one of our highest users, one of our most active users. Would you have 10 to 15 minutes to talk to me and give me feedback about the challenges you're facing in using the product? And I would, depending on how I crafted the email, and also depending on the day that I send that email, I'd get roughly around a 5 to 10% like conversion rate where people would be willing to come and talk with me. So and I'm sure there are many ways. I've seen people who have used in teams I've been in who've used banners on their products to say, hey, we're looking for feedback. Do you want to talk to us? Click here to schedule a call. So in case that's a problem you're struggling with, those are some ideas that you can use. Christelle asks, what would be the vetting process for medical professionals on the app, and would the app be subscription based?
Thank you for that question. For vetting medical professionals who are planning or hypothesis, I'm just assuming one day it can be built. We're looking at using the directory of healthcare medical professionals in the country, and maybe running like a check on whoever is applying, and even having a few more a few more processes depending on what the regulators say. And for whether the app will be subscription based, if I was to get up, I would say not at inception, more maybe say later on a few more services added, maybe for appointments, those kinds of things as you come in, for like maybe like a check-in kind of service. But with the current version, it will be primarily free.
Okay. So if anyone has questions, I'd like to open it up to, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we can then take questions. They do not have to be directly related to David's presentation. Maybe you have a question around UX that you'd like people to contribute. Maybe there's a challenge you're facing and you'd want to ask for help or questions, or just make a comment around UX, obviously. Please raise your hand. I see Vania, you wanted to ask a question. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. First, I just want to start by saying, like, David, that was a great job. And I think you presented really confidently and made it clear, like, what your process was, what your UX process was. And so I really also like how you did your slides. They were clean and it was easy to follow along. I think my other question that I had was about the competitive analysis. Like, what did it look like? Was it a SWOT analysis? Was it like a feature analysis? And then I also just wanted to say, I think your design was good. You tried to like really make it clean, and I saw that your icons were consistent, and and so I think you're like on the right track. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you for that. Thank you. To answer your question concerning the competitive analysis, we mostly did a fit analysis. I did not undergo a SWOT analysis because I was trying to, let me say, assume this application would be something fresh, because we were trying to revamp how the user flows will be in accessing medical professionals, because for most of these applications were mostly about either a self-diagnosis or just purely booking an appointment, necessarily trying to be in the emergency situation where you have to reach out to someone like who is next to you, but say, I hope I'm clear on that front.
All right, got it. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Vania. Anyone else has a question that they'd like to ask, comment they'd like to make? So, oh, okay. Veronica, go ahead. Veronica? Veronica, go ahead.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. First, I'd love to say the presentation was awesome, and I liked the slides. But then, what advice would you have to someone who is starting in UI UX, and maybe the materials that you'll advise me to use because I'm just starting out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for asking the question. Someone within the community would like to answer Veronica's question. And welcome to UX, the amazing journey. Anyone who'd like to answer, please raise your hand. Just I'd like it to be, if you have advice for Veronica, I'm sure there are people here who have gone through the same process.
So, okay, it's me, Kitikai. Not to give a direct answer, but I can give a link to a video that I usually recommend to any beginner. So it's on the chat. It's a beginner-friendly UX walkthrough. The lady there gives a very practical advice, so check it out.
Thanks, Kitikai. Anyone else would like to give their nuggets? How did you get started in this journey? What resources? If you are to start again, I guess that's the question I would ask on your behalf, Veronica. If you are to start again, what would you do? Or maybe what would you do different? Yes, Vanya, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, welcome, and that's exciting. I'm excited for you. I think practice is key, and networking is great, which you're already doing. Networking with other UX designers and learning from each other. Yeah, but also just learning to empathize with users. I think when you start doing UX, you just start seeing like how design could be better in everyday things. So I think maybe just starting to pay attention to just things around you, and then see how you can make an experience more delightful for users could go a long way in research and then in design.
Awesome. Thanks, Vanya. Waiwa?
Okay, hi. So for me, what I would advise, not advise necessarily, but just to give insights, I started product design in a bootcamp. It was free. So I can plug you with some free trainings for UX, UI, and then you can get started with that, learning in a community, and also help you like get in touch with people who are already learning. So for me, it's been getting out into a boot camp and then coming out here and networking in events like this, product design events like this. So far, I'm in month 9, and I think I'm doing pretty great. So yeah, it's an exciting journey that you can take on. And yeah, just hit me up. I'll help you through.
Awesome. How can people reach you, Waiwa?
My name is Lynette Wayua on LinkedIn, but in the meantime, I'll just give you my email for now.
Okay, you can paste it in the chat.
Yeah.
All right, or like message. You can probably message. There are probably more people than just Veronica, so you can probably message everyone who would like to reach out. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who has asked questions, contributed, and again, David, thank you for presenting. It's not easy to present in front of people, and you've done a great job, done it very confidently. And so I thank you for raising your hand and asking to do this, and that taking the opportunity and doing a great job with it. So I'd like to before we close, I'd like us to just go through one more thing. The first is, as I've mentioned, the opportunities that we have, job opportunities that are currently active. And so I would like to Oh yeah, there we go. So there are the jobs as had been mentioned. Mideva, there's the 2023 Mideva Design Fellowship. You can apply. The link, I believe, will be posted again. Thank you, Michael. I'm reading what, okay, Buspass is hiring. Okay, Buspass, Kapu, Turnkey, Africa, Teza Solutions, Safaricom, Give Directly, and Canonical are hiring UX designers, and the links are there. Zindua School is hosting a UX workshop on the 1st of July, and Moringa School is hosting a product design event on the 9th of July. And with us is Matthias from Kapu, who would like to give an opportunity to speak for a few minutes on the opportunity they have and what they're looking for.
Cool. Thank you very much for the time. Do you guys want to switch on the video, or should I just speak?
Yeah. Yes, please do.
All righty. Hey guys. Thank you very much, David, again for the presentation. It takes a lot of courage to speak in front of many people. Well done that. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak for a second here. I just wanted to present a bit the opportunity that we have at Kapu. I'm sure there are other companies out there that are not on the list that are also hiring at the moment. But for the folks that don't know about Kapu, Kapu is a company based in Kenya. We supply groceries for the low to middle income segment across the continent. And we have started the company in November 2021, have raised our pre-seed and seed investment rounds from investors, and are trying now to bring down the cost of living for the everyday African consumer, who is spending 40 to 60% of their income on groceries, which is a big limiting factor for the continent's growth. And yeah, so this is what we are trying to achieve. Me, myself, I'm the Chief Product Officer at Kapu. I joined the company 2 years ago, and have been hailing from Singapore, where I was before, working at a company called Grab, which is a ride-hailing company similar to Uber. I was a couple of years at Facebook, also in a product function there. So I've been quite familiar with the Southeast Asian market, which is also an emerging market. So I can very much see how Sub-Saharan Africa, or Africa as a whole, is a bit behind on that wave of innovation and development, but it's catching up very fast. So they're very similar patterns. And yeah, us as Kapu, we are trying to kind of make this first step of digitizing commerce to the end consumers. And by bringing them commerce online, we can ensure more efficiency when we source our products. And rather than people today going to kiosks, dukas on the street, where the goods are quite expensive because of the very inefficient sourcing, we are trying to onboard those dukas and kiosks to become Kapu agents. And when, for example, one of you or anyone on our system would order, the next day we would deliver the goods to these close by Kapu agents that then can be picked up by our consumers. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard a lot about companies such as Trigger, Vasoko, that are doing a very similar thing. The difference here is that they're mainly supplying those dukers and agents and kiosks with goods that they place in their shelves, versus we are trying to make this one step further, which is, I think, currently a moment in time where it becomes possible to digitize about 1 billion end consumers that have not yet been able to do so. And in regards to the opportunity that we were alluding to before, we are looking for a UX and UI designer to join our team on the ground in Kenya and Nairobi. And yeah, the opportunity composes like everything around user research, UI design, UX design, working closely with product people, with engineering. We have a very small team of about 30 people. but they're all quite experienced. So I think it's a good opportunity for somebody who wants to make a first step in building a team and growing with a lot of experienced folks around them that have done it before. And yeah, if there is any questions or anything that you guys are interested to know about Kapu, please raise your hand or shoot me a message later. If you're interested to apply, there is a link on the job description that you can use, or you can as well send me a message later.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthias. Matthias, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
That's okay. Everyone is butchering my name.
What's the right way of pronouncing it?
It's Matthias, but you're very close.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Awesome. Thank you. Anyone have a question? I see there's a question, the word question on chat.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask Matthias to just briefly go through the kind of a person they're looking for the role. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Sorry, I haven't touched on that. So I think the person that will be likely successful at Kapu at the moment is a person that has about 5+ years of UX UI design experience, has worked in a startup environment, might have also worked for a more established company like Safaricom, and someone who is interested to apply their jobs of UX UI design in a very fast-moving environment. So, for instance, it is helpful if you know how things are done right, but it is helpful if you can use this knowledge and apply to the current situation of going out to the market quickly, validating quickly some ideas, coming back, changing your designs, testing them with your customers again. So I think this is an overlap between having the skill set of having done it before, but at the same time being able to adapt that skill set to the current environment. Other than that, we are looking for someone ideally who is based in Kenya, or if not, someone who has the ability to travel regularly to Kenya in order to be able to see the local development and the local environment, which makes it much easier to build products. Other than that, we are quite open to anyone who wants to apply, because we believe that it's not only about the education, but it's about, yeah, exactly. It is remote hybrid office. Yeah, as mentioned, we are open to remote to the extent that about 40 to 60% of the time must be spent in Nairobi. In terms of people that we're hiring within Nairobi, we have a 3-day office, 2-day work from anywhere policy. That's currently the setup.
Okay, cool. Again, thank you so much for talking to us.
Of course.
And wish you the best as you fill the role and even as you grow the product.
Thank you.
So yeah. All right, so we are at time, and thank you all for coming to the meetup today. We appreciate all of you for coming. Again, as I've mentioned, you can reach out to us on the different channels that exist. Tweets about this, anything that you found insightful. Tweet your insights at UIUX Nairobi. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And you can reach out to us directly at uiuxnairobi@gmail.com, and you'll be able to interact with us. Again, thank you all for coming, and I wish you a lovely evening. And until we meet again, and adios. So just as a final one, I think I forgot to mention that the next meetup is going to be happening same time next month. Trying to look for that date. Sky, probably you can shout it out. Oh, 25th of July, 2023. So that's when the next meetup is happening. So join us then. If you're not already receiving notifications to be coming for these meetups, there is an RSVP form that we normally would send. So connect with with the UIUX Nairobi community on LinkedIn, or reach out to any one of us, and so that you can be able to be notified the next time you're having a meetup. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely